Good morning, investors. Happy Friday. It's the weekend. Let's everybody have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful 3 day weekend. Well, technically 2 day week. I don't know. 3 day, 2 day weekend, same thing. But, anyways, I hope everybody has a great start of the weekend. Let's enjoy it. Let's enjoy some beautiful summer weather. I think pretty much all over in the US, the weathers are getting back to the summer days. So that's beautiful. So, everybody go outside, enjoy some beautiful weather. I got three. Oh, by the way, my name is Tony Moreno. This is the Real Estate Investor News Channel. I appreciate everybody joining. I have three amazing stories that we are going to go over today. The first one is these U.S. cities are overflowing with affordable single family home under $300,000. So where could we find still $300,000 home in which cities or less? I'm sorry. Spokane, which is I believe is a county in Washington, not DC, but Washington State, it will require now 4 to 6 months of advance notice for rent increases. For landlords to let the tenants know, which is crazy. Anyways, the third story is multifamily rent growth trailing seasonal norms. So we're going to discuss as to why usually in the summertime the rate increases. So we're going to figure out why that is. So let's go over to our first story right away. Oh, by the way, if you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're watching this on Facebook Live, Instagram Live, please be sure to go to YouTube and hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you know when I go live every morning with this. I go live at 7 a.m., but it never hurts to get a notification when I am live, actually live. So for the first story, we got excuse me, these are the U.S. cities that are overflowing with affordable single family homes. So if you're a new time home buyer, maybe you could consider moving into one of these. But of course, be careful, do your research, and make sure the industries around these areas is actually diverse. It does not depend on one industry alone. It says here with medium house prices in the U.S. itching towards $500,000, and mortgage rates back over 7%, home buyers and investors alike are getting choked out of the market. According to Realtor.com, there are several markets where you can buy a good quality home in a good neighborhood for under 300,000. The seven cities identified, I'm just going to mention the top three probably: Birmingham, Alabama, Buffalo, New York, and Cleveland, Ohio. The other ones are Detroit, Pittsburgh, Rochester, and St. Louis. So let's discuss the top three here. The ones that actually are listed in the article. So, Birmingham, Alabama, medium house prices rose by 4% annually to 290,000 in March of this year, like 2 months ago. The good news for buyers and investors is that listing inventory rose 27.6% year over year. So, inventory rose, that means prices are most likely stable. Now, I will say something about Birmingham just because I live in Alabama and I do track the Alabama market. I live in Huntsville. And I mean, I think Huntsville was put in the map really during 2020, really, if you really want to consider it, because there was still house prices were lower than other markets and rent was booming. And this city is actually growing super fast. But anyways, what I'm trying to get to is in the census of 2010, Birmingham was the number one city in Alabama, population wise, metro area, population wise. Montgomery was at number two. Huntsville was at number three. But now in the 2020 census, the one that happened 4 years ago, Huntsville became number one, surpassing Montgomery and Birmingham. Birmingham was at number two, and Montgomery was number three. And again, from my perspective, Birmingham is actually in a decline according to the census that happened in 2020. If I'm not mistaken, a reduced population. So again, do your research. I'm not entirely sure where this article got their data, but do your own research when you investigate these cities yourself. So it says here, a complete remodel detached 1,700 square foot home with 3 bedrooms, 2 bath. It will cost you 290,000 in Birmingham. Now, Birmingham has been one of the, it says here, Birmingham has been one of the fastest appreciating cities in the South. In March 2024, the median listing home price was 179, and it went up 20% year over year, which is insane. The second city is Buffalo, New York, which is in the north, bordering Canada, has benefited from a decade of city initiatives that pour billions into park, public art projects, and apartment complexes. The 2020 census figures show the population increase for the first time in 70 years. A medium home price here it will cost you about 270,000. So yeah, and then the last city is Cleveland, Ohio, which the area has over 110 110,000 college students and sees 3.7 billion in annual research. Medicine is the city's leading employer through research, biotech, medtech, and healthcare. Spearheaded by the Cleveland Clinic. And I remember I used to live there back when I was a kid, and I didn't like Cleveland because it was too cold. So, so yeah, I mean, but it's great that Cleveland is still doing well. Other industries in Cleveland is manufacturing, law, aerospace, banking, insurance, technology, education, and other items. The median home price in Cleveland is 227,000. And lastly, according to Rent Cafe data, 59% of household rent in Cleveland, making it another primal rate. I'm not sure what that means. So just forget that I said that. All right, let's go over to our second story because we stayed on this one for a little bit. So, Spokane, which again is a county in Washington state, will require 4 to 6 months of advance notice for rent increases. That is crazy. I think in Alabama right now, it's a 30-day notice. And for you to 6 months, that is insane, which is, 180 days. And the reason why I say it's insane is because, I get it, tenants, me personally, I give my tenants about 90 days to adjust. I give them a heads up. Hey, rent increase is coming or a rent decrease. It hasn't happened yet, but if that happens, it is what it is. I'm not going to be a greedy landlord, God willing. But anyways, I give them 90 days because I think that's a fair time for you to adjust to your new change. But 180 days, that means like if inflation goes crazy, an investor is going to be held with low rents, affected by probably their mortgage or something like that. I mean, yeah. So let's read this article. Enough of me talking too much. On Monday, the Spoke City Council passed a consensual and hotly debate city ordinance that aimed to give tenants additional time to prepare for rent increase. The law, which passed 5-2, required landlords to give 180 days notice before rent increase of more than 3% and 120 days for rent increases under 30%. The rule applies to longer term and month-to-month lease to take effect June 1st. City Council members Paul Dillon, who sponsored the new law, says that it isn't nearly enough time for tenants to budget for rent increases and, if necessary, find a new place to live. Again, I agree with what he's saying. Like, yes, you should get a sufficient time to try to adjust for rent or to find a new place, but I don't think you need 6 total months to find a new place. I mean, you can find a new place in 90 days or less, I think. So yeah, I mean, I get it to where, you need time to adjust, but at the same time, I do not agree with the 6-month time frame. Let me get some water here real quick. It says here, many landlords were strongly opposed to the new law, arguing that it will be too difficult to predict inflation, which is what I said earlier. Property taxes and market conditions will look like 6 months into the future. So that's a very interesting article there. Which again, I mean, this is in Washington State, if I'm not mistaken. It didn't really say, but I think it is Spokane, yeah. And then for our third story, we got multifamily rent growth trailing seasonal norms. So usually in the summertime, housing demand increases, rent increases. So this is the season. It's saying it's not following the trend. So let's see why. RealPage rent growth monitoring shows rent that they fell 0.1% from the last quarter of 2023. The pre-pandemic norm was a 0.6% increase in the year's first quarter. The pandemic triggered a time where seasonal trend disappeared as rent surged. They grow. Of course, in the pandemic, things just were out of control. Rent were increasing. House prices were going up like crazy. So, of course, that's a bad a benchmark to compare it to, in my opinion. Says here, according to RealPage, the change is due to unit deliveries. And I was like, what does that mean? So it says here, back when apartment occupancy and rent growth were hitting record high across the nation in 21 and 22, we saw a surge in multifamily permitting activity, RealPage wrote earlier this year. As a result, 2023 logged a big increase of deliveries with nearly 440,000 apartment units completed throughout the year. And that's what I've been saying. I mean, maybe in the last 3 weeks, I believe we've covered several stories where we see that there's a lot of apartments that are supposed to be completed, apartment buildings, that are supposed to be completed this year, 2024 and 2025. So, of course, that may slow down rent increases or even lower it. So yeah, I don't think this article. I don't think it's in the right track as to what they're saying. I really think it's just because it's just there's a lot of saturation. There's a lot of supply. So obviously, apartment buildings are going to be competing with lower rent, so the tenants could move to their buildings. Among major markets that saw some of the largest droughts were Dallas, San Antonio, San Diego, Phoenix. I notice how those the first two, Dallas, San Antonio, were in Texas, because a lot of people are moving there and a lot of builders are building apartments there. So obviously those cities is being affected. Then you got San Diego, Phoenix, Tampa, Charlotte, Fort Worth, and Oakland. That is our three stories for today. And again, what the article was saying, I don't necessarily agree with. I think it's just these markets are saturated. So if you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe to our channels, whether that is on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. That is the way we grow. And I appreciate everybody listening in. And I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful weekend. Enjoy the beautiful weather. Enjoy family, friends, and everything you can. That is all I have for you guys today. God bless. And again, have a